In my video the other month sharing my entire Minnie Mouse ear collection, a lot of the ears that I showed were ones that I made myself because I run my own Etsy mouse ear shop. I asked in that video if people were interested in seeing a kind of behind the scenes of my mouse ear shop, and people seemed pretty interested, so that's what we'll be doing today in this video. My mouse ear inspired shop that I run on Etsy is called Confectionear shop. So I make a whole bunch of ears that are themed to sweets and treats. So I have things like churros and beignets and ice cream and lollipops and a whole bunch more. Very much inspired by the treats and snacks that they have available in the Disney parks. Whenever Disney comes out with a new kind of either circular or Mickey-shaped treat, I think, well, how can I try and turn that into a pair of ears? So I have defined that as like a very specific niche for myself because there's so many mouse ear shops out there. And I think it's very important to have a kind of defined or distinct style of ears. You know me, I love my snacks and treats from the Disney parks. That's one of my big pin collections. And so it's kind of worked out perfectly for me to focus on and do that for ears. And it's also a way that I can enjoy being super creative because with my ears, I like to combine a lot of different mediums. And it's always just really fun to try and come up with new designs. So I started making mouse ears in fall 2017. I first did a video here on my YouTube channel of a DIY for how to make rainbow lollipop mouse ears that look like actual lollipops. So that was a DIY idea that just kind of came to me, and it was really just going to be for content for my YouTube. But people really seemed to enjoy that video and like those ears, so it was kind of like, well, why don't I make and sell those ears on Etsy? So it was shortly after that when I started up my Etsy mouse ear shop. At the time, I just called it Zip-a-Dee-Doo ears, basically a mirror of my channel name, and it was for quite a while when I just made and sold various versions of those lollipop ears. However, it got to the point when I just kind of wanted to expand and do more and kind of turn it into more of a full mouse ear shop. So it was summer of 2018 when I decided to make some new designs. At the time, I did not have a sewing machine, so I fully hand sewed everything. But then for my birthday in November 2018, my boyfriend got me a sewing machine, and that's when everything was really able to kind of take off with my shop, and I was able to introduce so many new designs and increase productivity. Then I think it would have been probably the start of 2019, I rebranded my shop to Confectionear shop because I wanted something confectionery related, like, you know, the Main Street confectionery. And so I thought Confectionear shop would be perfect. And since then, I've really just kind of been trucking away, making ears, making new designs. And it's something that I really truly enjoy doing. So for those who don't know, I am a full-time PhD student. I'm a little over 1 year away from finishing my PhD in geology. So my mouse ear shop is by no means or even close to a full-time job. Based on technicality, I can't even consider it a job. Really, for me, it's an income generating hobby. And as I've decided to kind of focus on my shop more and more, it's really been the only way I've been able to kind of monetarily get through grad school because our salaries are so low. So pretty much any of my free time, meaning I come home from work in the evenings and then time on the weekends, I'm usually spending that time working on ears. So really that means I don't have any free time, but I enjoy making ears and crafting and creating so much that it still feels like a kind of fun hobby as opposed to something I have to do. But I currently open up my ear shop about every 3 weeks. I'm at the point now where my shop will usually only be open for an hour or two before I hit the maximum amount of orders I can handle, which is usually about 20 ears. And then I have a 2 to 3 week processing time for me to actually make and finish the ears. I find a processing time of like a max of 3 weeks to be the best because people oftentimes want and need their ears sooner rather than later. And that way I can also kind of have like more frequent shop openings. So I use my Instagram page as the way to always kind of like alert and notify people about when I'm opening my shop. It's only been within kind of the last few to 6 months that I've had to do these discrete shop openings. Before, my shop would just kind of always be open and I'd only close it if I just had too many orders in and I was too busy and couldn't get things done. And with that, I would have to rely a decent amount on kind of native Etsy search, like people searching for mouse ears. I'm very thankful I don't have to rely on that as much anymore because Etsy is horrible in the sense now that they only prioritize shops who offer free shipping guarantees, like over $35. Generally, my ears are within the $30 to $40 range, so some are above that and some are below that. And it is an absolute ripoff to incorporate the price of shipping into ears, both for the seller and for the buyer. And if you don't have that free shipping guarantee, Etsy is going to bury your listing in the search. And just for context of how ridiculous this is with Etsy, if I want free shipping on Shop Disney, I have to spend $75. If it was a cap that high, you know, sure, I could try and offer that free shipping, but it really is just an awful ploy by Etsy. I hate it so much. So I don't have that free shipping because, hey, guess what? If you buy 2 pairs of my ears, I don't want you paying for shipping twice. Also, it costs a different amount to ship depending on where you're located in the country. That's really the one thing I dislike about selling on Etsy nowadays, but thankfully that's something that doesn't really affect me because I've kind of built up the traction for my shop on Instagram, and then I'm able to do my shop openings without having to rely on Etsy search features. So that's kind of like the basic overview of my shop, how I got started, how long I've been making ears, and now I wanted to show kind of like the behind the scenes of like what my whole setup here is like. So here's just a little overview of my whole kind of setup area in my office for all my ear supplies. I've definitely accumulated a number of these supplies over time, and I kind of always find I'm needing more storage space. But this is my desk where I make pretty much all of my ears at, and this is the sewing machine that I had. It's a Brother sewing machine, just kind of, you know, really basic. With what I do, I don't really need anything fancy with a sewing machine, just something that kind of functions nice and well. And then I have kind of staples that I always have at my desk that I'm always using, like hot glue gun and glue sticks. Always have my E6000, certain kind of fabric markers. I have my most commonly used threads, you know, needles, pins, tape measure, that kind of stuff. I have all the patterns that I use for my ears in here. These are just ones that I make myself. I put packing tape to kind of laminate it so that they're a little bit sturdier, but that's where I have all of my ear templates. And then what I've started to do for my last few openings is in this notebook, I actually write down all the orders that I need to do and the kind of specifications for them. So I'm somebody who really likes to have things like physically down on paper, and it's much easier for me than always constantly having to like open up my Etsy app. This way I can more easily like make sure everything I have for the ears is correct. And then for my next opening, you can see I actually crossed off each pair of ears as I made it. So this is not really a necessary step because Etsy holds all this information, but I like this because I can take this with me and have, you know, full physical thing. So this front part of my desk is unusually clean because I actually flipped it. You can see there is just so much fabric paint and glue and crafting schmutz on this. For me, it doesn't really matter because this is just like a super cheap IKEA table, but it probably would be better to get some sort of like disposable cover you can put on a real table so you're not just like destroying it. But now I kind of have like the ugly side in the back and, you know, a nicer surface up front. So then I have this kind of like open cabinet area that I use as storage for a lot of my supplies. Up here you can see all of the current ears that I have in progress. So I have like tons of beignets and a lot of churros. So this is what the churros look like in their bare form. They're all 6 individual tubes I connect together, and then on all of my ears I hand sew them on to the headbands. So with my ears there is a lot of hand sewing because I hand sew the bottom shut, you have to hand sew them onto the ears, but I think that gives it a much more professional finish look than if you're just like slapping hot glue on it. You can see I have like a napkin holder and all these cups up here because I use this for drying ears. So you can imagine that there's a pair of ears on here. I can have them hang here because tons of the time I have glue or fabric paint that needs to dry and the ears have to be upright. So these are kind of like my miscellaneous cups and whatnot that I spread out to have ears dry. I have kind of like loose organization for things here. So you can see I have some extras of my dried lollipops for ears. And here is a whole bunch of like miscellaneous things that I need. I have polymer clay to make sprinkles and some pre-made sprinkles and other doodads and pom-poms. I have just like basic types of crafting supplies, you know, like X-Acto knives, pliers, And then in this guy, I keep all of my sugar that I use for my shave ice ears. So that's material that I import. I also import, I have a few boxes of the material for my powdered sugar for beignet ears. I have a whole bag of sugar that I use for my churro ears. So as much as I can, I like to try and have a lot of extra stock on hand, since these items are all ordered from overseas and you never want to have there be like a delay in shipping and not have enough to make your items. So I've accumulated a decent amount of stock for that. Then I have kind of like a headband centric bin. So these are the base headbands that I use. These are a 1-inch plastic, and these I believe are a HIPS plastic. The more common type of headband to use is from an ABS plastic, which is harder and firmer. So I prefer using this HIPS kind because it's a little bit softer and more pliable, and therefore it will be more comfortable to wear. So I get my headbands from AliExpress. I just have a small chunk of them here. I have a whole bunch of extras for my order in my closet. Also in here, I have teeth that I'll put on my headbands, so I offer these as an additional option. So these are just a soft rubber teeth that I'll glue on if the buyer wants to add them on the inside of the finished headband. This just really helps to add additional grip, especially if the ears are a little heavier, or if you have like finer hair where headbands tend to slide a little bit more. So I really like adding those to ears. And then I have a whole bunch of my braid trim. So this is kind of what goes on the interior of the headband. This gives it a little bit more grip and it makes it a really nice finish. And so as you can see here, I hand cover every single one of these headbands. You can see I haven't really taken off like the hot glue strands from this, but this allows me to fully customize everything. I like having kind of like a fuzzy headband. It also makes it nicer for sewing things in. Some shops will just get the cheap ones of these headbands that come pre-covered. So these are when shops just kind of like want to save time and just get a pre-covered headband, but I always find the quality of those aren't as nice, and I like to make my own. So then we have more storage stuff here. I have a lot of my other polymer clay sprinkles, and then also some kind of like accents that go on the bows. Then in here, the most important thing that I have are my label tags that I put on the inside of all of my ears. I get these made from an Etsy seller. I think it's like Labels from Los Angeles. You can upload your own custom design, and I think it's great to put your own label inside the ears, because if somebody is like in the parks and, you know, compliments a person who's wearing your ears, that way they always know what shop it's from. So it is a bit of an extra investment to do this, but I think it's worth it to have your own little labels to put on ears. We've got things like my faux plumeria flowers for shave ice ears, and then in here is all of my tie-dye supplies because I hand dye fabric for those ears. I have a whole big bucket of glitter glue and loose glitter. This is my cinnamon dust for my churros. I have a whole big bucket of current active fabric paint. I use fabric paint a lot because it kind of acts as frosting, you know, like on donuts, kind of hot fudge on ice cream. And then I have a huge thing of fabric paint in the back that are all kind of my extras. So we go through a lot of fabric paint and glitter here. Then down here, those two guys are pin stuff, but then I have a lot of kind of resin related things in here. I use resin for my lollipop ears. I just use this Elmer's glue for making my own glitter glue. I have all these beads that I use for my lollipop ears. Then just kind of like randomly tucked in here, I have my simulation whipped cream for sundae ears. And then I have this shoe organizer from Costco that I use to hold most of my fabric. So my fabric is kind of like loosely organized into genre. I at least always know where to find what I need. But I've also got more fabric here in this bag of stuff that I use, more fabric tucked in there. I also have pipe cleaners for churros, a whole bunch of paintbrushes and whatnot. So shoe organizers are actually really great for fabric. For me, I just have to, you know, take the effort to actually refold the fabric and put it back in so it's not just lying on a mess on my floor. And then at top here is kind of a whole bunch of miscellaneous supplies. It's a little disorganized, but easy for me to kind of throw stuff in. I use spray adhesive when dealing with my faux sugar. I go through a lot of Mod Podge to pre-seal the beignet fabric. I do also use a lot of painter's tape. I use this to cover the headband when I'm decorating the ears because I don't want glue or other fabric paint bits to get on and destroy the headband. So some of this is kind of like extra supplies here, but what I do also have and what I include on all my ears is my business card. So this is my business card. I did all of the design work for my shop. I also really like graphic design, so it kind of works out nicely. I get all these cards printed via overnight prints. Overnight prints is way better quality than Vistaprint. So I just punch a little hole in there, have some fun little yarn and tie that onto the ears. And then hopefully people will read this and take a picture in their ears and then tag me on their Instagram, because it is just the coolest thing to see somebody in the Disney parks wearing your ears. I also have a separate little card that I include with my lollipop ears because they're not fabric. If you really crush them, you can break them. So I used to individually like handwrite a note on my invoice, but it's kind of much easier to put this with the ears. You can see I actually have some things in progress right now. So I've just figured out how to make Rice Krispie treat ears, and I just printed out my own fabric and they're currently drying right here. So my office is usually just a mess with like ear stuff spread all over. And then because I really just like run out of room here in the hallway closet here is where I have to store a whole bunch of other stuff. So in this box up here is where I have all of my Crayola model magic clay. That's what I use to make the lollipop ears. I like to order in bulk when I can for that. It also makes it cheaper because the material is kind of expensive. And then lower down, you can see I got a fresh bag of Fiberfill. It looks like a lot of Fiberfill, but you can actually go through this pretty quickly. So I just always try to get it when it's on sale. And then inside my ears, this is a 1/4 inch. It's called Household Firm Foam from Joann's. This is what I use as an insert in all of my ears. Helps give it stability. This is where like people in DIYs would use cardboard for ears. If you're making and selling ears, you should never use cardboard because that is not a robust supply at all. So I also go through a lot of that. You can also see I have a whole bunch of my other headbands. I put in a pretty big bulk order, and again, always make sure you have tons on hand because when you order for something like AliExpress, it can take over a month for it to arrive. And then I do also have like extra fabric on hand here. Then, because I need even more space in the spare bedroom, I have some of my packing supplies. So I pack my ears with bubble wrap. So I always wrap my ears in a layer of bubble wrap. I put extra bubble wrap on the lollipop ears. You always want to make sure everything is super well protected because you never know what the post office is going to do. And then I have this whole bag of literally just air. These are great when adding in packages that have a little bit of extra room. You want to make sure there is no extra room because this is again going to make your packaging a lot more secure and going to help things not get damaged. Hey, I have a beautiful lady who's here to say hi. She always loves to hang out in my office and help me work, don't you, pretty girl? Well, right underneath Micah, under the futon here, is where I store my shipping boxes. So these are the primary shipping boxes that I use. These fit one pair of ears. So this is like a corrugated literature mailer. Let me just kind of like fold this up so you can see what it looks like as a box. So this is what it looks like all put together. Just really nice and easy because all you have to do is fold that side in. I'll put the dimensions of this on the screen because the dimensions are not whole numbers. But how I'll pack my ears is I will wrap these ears in a layer of bubble wrap, and then these kind of fit perfectly inside just like so. So whenever I have like an ear on ears, I have to kind of tilt them sideways. The other ears fit in just kind of in a regular orientation. But then, you can just kind of like close them up, seal them up. And then I also like having the layer of bubble wrap around them because it adds kind of like a little waterproof layer if needed. Also, I didn't explain these ears. These ears are part of my new Rice Krispie treat line. They're inspired by the peanut butter chocolate donut Rice Krispie at Disneyland. I do also have one other style of box. This is just, a standard box, and this is a 12 by 9 by 3. I use this when shipping my lollipop ears so that I can have the extra air packaging in there. I usually will also use these for shave ice ears because they're a little too tall for the other box. This can fit typically 2 pairs of ears in there. If somebody orders more ears, then I'll, try and find, another box that I've saved. But typically these 2 styles of boxes is good enough for me. And then I just have a standard inkjet printer, and then I have these label sheets. So there's 2 sheets per paper, and it's much easier to just cut this out and stick it on the box and not have to like extra tape this up. So hopefully that was interesting to kind of see the whole deconstructed behind the scenes of my shop. Let me know if you have any questions about running a mouse ear shop. I can of course also make more videos related to the topic in the future. The thing that I will mention now, and that I definitely do think is important, is that in my Etsy listings and description and Etsy tags, I do not include the word Disney, Minnie, or Mickey anywhere. These are purely mouse-inspired ears. I do not use the facial likeness of any characters in any way in my ears. There are a lot of shops that what they do definitely is illegal. You don't want Disney to go after you because you are in your title saying these are Disney Minnie Mouse ears or Disney Mickey Mouse ears. However, Disney with their merchandise by and large has kind of had this trend. Instead of like shutting a small shop down, they will just like steal what they do and make it themselves. But it's always better to be safe than sorry. So the only time when I use tags like Disney or Minnie and Mickey is when I'm tagging a photo on my Instagram. But I do not use them as terms in any way to sell my ears. The other last thing that I just wanted to say that's kind of my bugaboo is it's really annoying when wannabe Disney influencers message me on Instagram and they've never followed me before, never bought from me before, and are basically asking like, hey, can I have a free pair of ears? The answer to that will always be heck no. If you've never interacted with or supported my shop in any way, why would I send you a free pair of ears? Now, I don't have any problem with giving away ears. It's just this like presumption of like the wannabe influencers of getting free stuff and like, oh yeah, I'll take a picture of it and show it to my followers. And why would I want promotion from somebody who's never like been interested in or actually supported my shop? So I know that was kind of like a random tangent at the end, but that's kind of like the one thing that bothers me when I just get those type of messages. I try not to send back like too snarky of a response, but it's like, if you're interested in my ears and you'd like to support my shop, you're more than welcome to purchase my ears. Well, you know, if it's somebody who's actually like been a fan of my shop and has, you know, purchased ears and enjoyed them and then wanted to propose some sort of agreement like that, you know, sure. Where I think it's important if you're running your own shop, don't just give out free stuff to somebody who has shown no interest or support in your actual shop. But let me know if you'd like me to make any more videos related to Etsy and mouse ear shops. But thanks for watching!